It is my pleasure to bring you our keynote for today. Ben Honeycutt is a junior at the University of Kansas. If I got that wrong, you can correct me later. As a high school senior, he started a project to send 2 laptops and establish internet access for a school in a rural village in Nepal. How cool is that? Since then, that project has grown in amazing ways that you're going to learn about. His dream is to become a writer who is the voice for those who otherwise couldn't have one. And he also hopes to help students cultivate their passions the way his teachers did for him. Please welcome Ben Honeycutt.
All right. Is the mic working out okay? Everyone hear me? All right. Well, first, I want to express what an honor it is for me to be here today. As you're going to find out soon, everything about my project today that I'm going to talk to you about, the whole creation of this project, would not have been possible without the incredible teachers that I've had in my life. So to be speaking with you all today is such an incredible honor for me, and thank you all so much for coming here today. All right, so to get started, throughout this presentation, I'm really going to encourage, if you have any ideas on how to open the world for different students, for maybe students in your classroom or students around the world, I would encourage you to tweet that out or Facebook it or Instagram with the Open the World hashtag. And also, if you care to follow me on Twitter, you can follow me at Ben A. Honeycutt. I promise that 80% of my tweets are going to be focused on education. Occasionally you're going to see the Royals tweet or the darn it, the Chiefs lost again tweet, but most of the time it's going to be education, I promise. All right, and also before we get started, I would encourage everyone to go to http://eRev Open World. On this, you'll have another chance to go to it later, but I have supplied a lot of different applications that I have felt that have really been used well in the classrooms, the teachers that I've partnered with, and have helped teachers cultivate projects like ours over the last 5 years. So if any of you have the chance to go, I would highly recommend it. And I've also left the spaces like 9 pages, so 900 empty slots where you can enter your name and also suggest applications that have worked well in your classrooms and have also maybe worked well for teachers that you know. Because my goal here today, if you can leave here today with an app that could help you or your students, that would be the dream come true for me, because I would just love to extend the type of support that was extended to me during my senior year in high school. So without further ado, all right, clicker works just fine, it's a good sign. All right, so just a brief introduction. This was a project that got started in high school. I was a senior in high school when it first got started. A teacher suggested or pushed me, which was something that I was not expecting to do during my senior year. And since that time, we expanded into a student organization at the University of Kansas. Our project went from 2 to 5 people. In fact, I would like, before I get started, to introduce you to Connor Jansen. He was a co-founder of the Open World Cause. It's an honor for me to have him here today. And Connor and I took what was just a 2-person project at Bueller High School, and were able to expand it into a 5-person project. And then we had the honor of traveling to Nepal and getting to visit a school that we helped fund the construction of for indigenous students in Nepal, and actually just got back a week ago, so we're still feeling the jet lag a little bit. But, and recently, in the last month, we also just applied for 501c3 status to be an official charitable organization. All right, and so what I would encourage you today is that I challenge each and every one of you. My project got started because a single teacher came to me and said, Ben, I challenge you to create a legacy that you can pass down to students and generations that follow you. And today, I would like to extend that same challenge to you. It's amazing, just that one challenge, to see how much has grown from that one challenge 5 years ago in August during my senior year. that has inspired me to push everyone I possibly can to start Legacies today. So if you have any ideas for a legacy project, no matter where it is, whether it's in your home community or a community around the globe, I would love to hear what your ideas are. We would love to know that we could possibly help you get started with that and vision as well. So any ideas, we encourage the Open the World hashtag, or if you also want to talk to me about any ideas in person, I'll definitely be around after the keynote. So a little personal information. How many of you know of Kevin Honeycutt? Is there? Okay. So right there, my father is Kevin Honeycutt. He's a global presenter who has inspired, who was originally the inspiration that got me involved with Open World. And there's my mom right there. My dad, I gotta hand it to him. My dad taught me how to dream, and my mom taught me everything else. So that's. I'm sure parents in the audience will understand how that one works. There in the corner, that girl and I in the bottom left-hand corner, her and I are an item, so yeah, things are going well there, right there. And then in the right-hand corner, I'd like to direct attention, there is my baby brother, and I really don't feel like that picture does justice to him. So he's 3 months old. And if any of you went to like any of my father's presentations last year, you probably would have heard how excited he was to like change my room into a home office finally. Here's my baby brother right here, just a couple of days ago. I know. Have not seen him since I've gone to Nepal, oh my gosh. But anyway, so it was pretty great. It was a week. The week after he finally got his new home office done in my old bedroom, we found out that my baby brother Gibson was on the way. So we basically got to undo all of that in the span of a few months, and so I'm very happy with my parents. They always wanted another child. I don't know if they anticipated the 22-year gap, but hey, they're making it work. Alright, so we're going to focus on my senior year. So a lot of people, when I talk to a lot of students about creating causes like this, a lot of people come up to me and they say, well, Ben, I'm sure you were always cause-oriented like this. I'm sure that you and your dad have been working on things like this since freshman year. And to be honest, no, not at all. Dad always wanted me to, but it's one of those things. Dad would come in and I would hear, womp, 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 come on, son, and nothing would really ever get started. Here was a good example of an ill-advised decision right here. Has any of you ever heard of the 50 nugget challenge from McDonald's? Any of you? Gosh, we have really intelligent people in the audience. Not a lot of hands are raised, so this makes me feel even worse about this one. Well, it's essentially you get 50 McNuggets, and then you eat all of them. And so that was one of my poor decisions before my senior year. And really, my whole thing, what I love to do during my senior year is I would go, so anyone here from small town USA? Anyone? All right, yeah, small town USA represents. So in my small town, after 8 p.m., the hangout spot in the town is the town vending machine. That's where all like the cool kids go. And so I would drive to the vending machine, and what I told every one of my friends at the vending machine the summer before my senior year was that, you know what, I am worn down. I have worked so hard on my academics that I have deserved a free ride for my senior year. I'm going to do as little as possible. I have earned this because of how hard I worked. Again, going along the 50 nugget challenge in terms of bad decisions. But then a pesky teacher came along. So first day of my senior year, I got off to a great start because I was 30 minutes late, my first day of my senior year. And I walked into school and I heard this man, my AP senior English teacher, Mr. Knapp, he challenged us to create a legacy that would pass down to the students that followed us. And gosh darn it, that inspired me. I really didn't want it to, but it did. And so I went up to my father and I was like, Dad, do you have any ideas for a legacy? Let me tell you, he just refused this to this day, but I swear there were like tears in his eyes. He'd been waiting for this question for so long. And knowing my dad, he always has like 3 legacy projects in his head at a single time. And he directed me to a teacher named Govinda Panthi. Now, Govinda was a teacher in Nepal, in Bageshwari, Nepal, who, to get online, would have to walk an hour to an internet cafe, where he would get online about twice a month and try to reach out to a professional community all around the world. Now, Govinda got connected to my dad's community called Art Snacks. And I found out right away, once I talked to Govinda, that his school had a lot of need. At the time that I had been speaking to him, his students only had one slate board per classroom, and it was their dream to get a library to their school. So we got started, we thought, this would be a great idea for a senior legacy project, so we got started with the Open World Project. And our goal was to get $2,000 raised to get laptops and internet access to the school. Because, it was hard enough for me to communicate, as someone who Facebooked all the time. I was already horrifically bad at keeping time and with people and messaging people back on time. And so I found it very difficult right away. Govinda would only be able to get on for 1 hour with a 10-hour time difference once every 2 weeks in Nepal. So it got clear pretty fast that if we were wanting to create long sustainable projects with Govinda, or if anyone wanted to, he was going to have to find a way to get connected. So we decided that we'd create a campaign to raise money for these students in Nepal. Now, it was something that a lot of us, so 4 months passed. I did the thing where when we first got started, I hung up posters in my gas station and on telephone poles, and I was, 4 months in, we needed to raise $2,000, and we had about $0 raised. I'm confused. I was like, I hung up posters. I spent all day doing that. What is going on? And it occurred to me, it kind of hit me. I was sitting over Christmas break, doing normal Christmas break things, waking up at 3 in the afternoon and whatnot. And it's surprising how well that schedule actually worked out with Govinda, because, the whole time difference there. But it occurred to me, I was talking to him on Skype, we were communicating through Facebook, we'd leave Facebook messages, and I was like, it's really weird that, we have to do so much. I'm doing so much with technology in terms of communicating, and I'm communicating with someone who's literally half the world away, and yet I'm not using these tools to try to move this campaign forward. And so we created a Facebook page, we created a Twitter, we created a YouTube channel, and we thought, okay, let's try this again, and let's try to spread this story to a wide audience. So we decided to do a little video. We thought, this would be really cool. And of course, as many things happened senior year, we started it all wrong. We got the best camera in the world, and we got the little hats on. We're gonna be Spielberg with this video. Our goal, was someone was gonna watch this video, it was gonna go viral. And I kind of realized halfway through the video, I was like, we're not Spielberg, we're high school students. We need to sell, we shouldn't be trying to sell Spielberg, we need to be telling our story. We need to be telling the story of Govinda. And so we had this idea, we're like, what if we take the high production cost and instead represent who we are as high school students? So I used my phone camera, and I'll show you this video how we put this together real fast. I used my phone camera. Now, this phone camera, I'm not sure, most iPhones now have 8 megapixel cameras. The new Android, I think, have 16 megapixel cameras. This one didn't even have 1 megapixel, so I apologize for the quality in advance. But this is the video that we ended up creating.
I'm Vincent, and I'm a student at Keynote High School in Kansas. And I'm Jake Waters, and I'm also a student at Keynote High School in Kansas. I live in Inman, Kansas, which is about 6 miles away from Keynote. And I live in Lexington, Kansas, which is right here, about 10 miles away from Bueller.
Every year, the seniors from Bueller High School have to do a senior project before they graduate. This year, Jake and I became inspired by a project about 9,000 miles away.
And so, when we did this, we thought, this might be a good way so people can connect with us. And so my senior English teacher, saw this video and he thought this was really cool, and he's like, hey Ben, how would you feel if, maybe I contacted Kate News, the local news affiliate in our area, and with this video and asked if they wanted to do a story about this. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll see where this goes, okay. And later that day, it was that afternoon, Mr. Knapp comes to me, he's like, hey Ben, Kate News is coming this afternoon, so you might want to get a little story ready. Now, the problem with this at the very beginning was that before Govinda had laptops or internet access, we had 3 pictures of the school. And so Kate News comes along and we're like, oh, these are the pictures, and that's all. And so we had to find a way in the Kate News broadcast to kind of tell the story of the school without a lot of photo documentation. And so it really challenged us to kind of think outside the box. So what we ended up doing is we used Google Earth. We had a picture of the rooftop of the school. And so we used Google Earth to get a close-up of the rooftop of the school, and also used other means. We did an interview, and we also, like, it's so funny if you watch the actual Kate News broadcast, it's us in front of a projector, and the same 3 photos are just filtering back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But what was amazing to me was that it took, before, when I made this video, we didn't really know what to expect in this video, but it just took doing it and trying it. We would have never thought to contact Kate News. When I was putting posters all over my hometown, my thought was, well, I'm not going to call Kate News with this story, but just getting started and using this type of technology sort of opened new doors that we would have never anticipated, which continues to be a theme throughout the project. So once the Kate News story aired, the whole project sort of exploded. We ended up raising $5,700 out of our $2,000 goal. And on April 3rd, 2011, we had our first successful Skype call with the SAD school.
Can you see us? Yeah, the last
To this day, that remains one of the greatest moments of my entire life. In this video, this is the first time that many of these students had ever seen a computer before. This is the first time I had actually ever met the students. I had never seen the students or talked to the students before. And yeah, the video was really grainy, and the call only lasted for 30 seconds, but what it represented was something that went beyond anything I had ever done before. For the first time, I had started a project in the classroom that went all around the world. It was something that went, the first time in my life, it was something that went somewhere that went well beyond the classroom. And that moment was the start of so many great things for the school. The school ended up partnering with schools all around the world, and it inspired us to ask ourselves, what do we want to be? I ended up getting into education for this very reason. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life, but seeing this moment and seeing, the look in these kids' eyes, like the moment that we started having this conversation showed me what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And so we kind of had this weird, something strange sort of happen. So another thing this project did for us was it kind of broke us from our August to May mindset. I'm not really sure how many of you are familiar with this, but it seems like a lot of students focus pretty heavily on August to May, and then something happens in the summer. Is it like, I think, what's the phenomenon called? It's like the summer slip, where students forget everything. Well, I have been really committed to that idea of the summer slip for the first, 12 years of my life. I worked on forgetting as much as I could over the summer. Summer was not for, doing projects like this. Summer was for the relaxation. But then, in the middle of the summer in July, monsoon season hit in Nepal. And it caused 2 of the classrooms to collapse inside the SAD school, and 30 of the students who were attending the school no longer go to school anymore. And it caused Connor and I to ask ourselves, we were sitting down and we're like, laptops are cool and everything, but how cool are laptops if these kids don't have a school to go to? And so this inspired us to continue these efforts well beyond Bueller High School. So we ended up transitioning into a student organization at the University of Kansas. And in the last 4 years, we've raised $33,000 that has gone to providing the students clean water, the surrounding communities around these students clean water, and also we were able to construct a new school in a different area in Nepal, in the Rayanpur region in Nepal, that is serving, an indigenous population in Nepal. And just after traveling to Nepal, we have now sent in an application to be a 501c3 and a charitable organization that is serving schools in Nepal, Kenya, and Cambodia. And so this started this something that just started as an idea, as a challenge in the classroom, has become something well beyond anything that we could have imagined. So, how did we get here? What happened to get here? Because this isn't something that, we had imagined doing. There's not, there wasn't like a curriculum here. There wasn't like a standard that we looked on the wall. First step, get social media started. Second step, become a 501c3. There was no standard here. And so I had to think back, something that I pondered is that, what did it take, for us to go from inside the classroom to traveling to the Honeycutt region in Nepal. And so I had teachers who pushed me from the standard. Now, I won't lie, it wasn't easy, and not every teacher was Robin Williams jumping on the desk when I had a project like this. In fact, one of the most difficult things for me, thank goodness, just double checking to make sure my mom's not in the room. So I gotta confess, senior year was the first time I ever got a D in my entire life. Coincidentally, it was also the second time I got a D in my entire life. Doing a project like this was hard in high school, and I had teachers who were not supportive. In fact, so even though I was making the videos, creating the websites, and also the full-time Facebook and Twitter and YouTube channel editor for the Open World Cause, my computer technology teacher was failing me in Comp Tech class. And I went to him, we had this big project where we had to create a website, and I told him, I was like, okay, well, I've done this, for the senior legacy. He's like, oh, that's probably fine, whatever. And I checked on, Blackboard that night, and I had a 0 out of 100. And so I go to him and he's like, well, the assignment was to create a Dreamweaver website, and you didn't use Dreamweaver. And so it got kind of strange because with everything that I was doing, my high school asked me to present at a computer technology conference in Wichita, Kansas. And so I traveled with my principal, I went and presented, and at the end we had those slips of paper that came back up so many threes. It was such a great feeling. And as we were driving back, my principal told me, he was like, if there's anything you need, Ben, just let me know. I was like, well, it'd be awful nice not to be failing the class I just presented about. Just saying, But while I had teachers who enforced the standard, I also had teachers who broke me from it. So, of course, it goes without saying, Mr. Knapp, the entire time. So, originally in October, our project got shut down because we had only 3 pictures, and for some reason, Mr. Knapp was really concerned about sending large sums of money overseas to an unverified individual. And so, I told Mr. Knapp, I was outraged. I was like, I hung up all of those posters, and now you're shutting down my project? And he said these words to me, the first time a teacher had ever basically challenged me. He said, prove me wrong. And so I went out and first we found a Google Earth that showed the roof of the school, and the roof that we found through Google Earth, we zoomed in on the school. That wasn't good enough. We wanted more. And so we ended up finding charitable organizations based in Australia who had sent teachers to volunteer at the school just a year ago. And so once he had verification, we were allowed to go forward. But that challenge, that was the first time, he had every right at that time. There were a lot of ideas for a senior legacy that would have benefited our home community. He could have gone with any of those. But instead of taking the project out of my hands, he challenged me to do more. He challenged me to prove him wrong as a teacher. He challenged me as a student. It was the first time that a teacher had ever met me eye to eye, and it's a moment that I will remember forever. And secondly, I gotta recognize Mrs. Couchman. So Mrs. Couchman is, teacher of the year, one of the best math instructors that I have ever met in my entire life. She's brilliant. And I am about the worst at math that, anyone could ever find. And at the end of the year, I was really, disappointed because I worked really hard in her class. I've only gotten a C-, so don't tell my mom on that one either. But I kind of went to her and I was like, I'm really sorry, I feel like I should have done more, I don't know. And she said, Ben, it's like 20 years from now when you come back to this high school, you're not going to be going up to my classroom and remembering this C-. You're going to be remembering the legacy that you left behind. And in the conversation that followed, it hit me that what she was telling me was that don't worry about the standard. Don't worry about these standards. Worry about what you can do beyond the standard. And that was something that really, something that still inspires me to this day as a future educator, someone in the profession that I want to be able to unlock for my students. Not everyone is going to ace the standard, but you'll never know which students are going to open up and go well beyond the standards. And finally, Miss Darnell. Miss Darnell taught me that failure was not only an option, it was necessary. So when we first got started, we wanted to send books to the staff school. They needed a library, so the honest thing, find FedEx or UPS and just send books over there. Why not? And we had 1,800 books that we had gathered and we were going to send over to the school. And the problem was, we found out that would cost $84,000. Oh, okay, yeah. So one thing that Ms. Darnell said to me, though, was that you have 1,800 books, you've already done so much, what can you do now? We had just failed, we had just collected all this, and it was so exhausting and frustrating. What can you do now? Before, and I had, learned if I had many papers in her class, and I had gotten D's on, and she was one of the toughest instructors that I've ever had in my entire life. But what she challenged me to do was, instead of, getting, a failing grade and just moving on, she taught me to challenge myself and think, what can we do now? And we ended up actually partnering with a local bookstore who sold these books, donated half the profits to us, and then that $1,800 that we got, each book was sold for $2, was then donated to the school, which they funded their own library for. So there's, you never know, what can you do beyond failure? That was a lesson that did so much for me at that time in my life. And so one thing that I challenge you today, if there's anything, if legacy projects are something that you want to do in your curriculum, is are you an advocate for your students to go beyond the standards, or are you going to be a teacher who enforces the standard? And one thing is that maybe you're not teachers. Something tells me you're doing this with your summer. You're here, you're choosing to be here. So I don't see you, the people I've talked to, I don't see anyone as someone who enforces the standards. But I'm sure there might be people in your building who do. And while my school I didn't have 7 teachers my senior year who pushed me beyond the standard, the 3 teachers that I had who inspired me to keep going and push beyond the standard were why this project became anything today. So even if you have students who are struggling, maybe with other teachers in the building, to just be their advocate, to push them, can do well more than anything you could ever imagine. They can create something like this. And so, one thing that I would like to stop and do right now is I would like to recommend different apps that work well. So one thing I started thinking about was, while this worked for me, while I had parents who were forgiving enough that I ruined my GPA during my senior year, this probably isn't true for every student. Not every student is going to be able to completely sacrifice where they are academically to pursue projects like this. So something I thought about was, what can we do to optimize this project, to make these types of projects more possible for students? And so apps that I would highly recommend right away, GroupMe is perfect, right? Anyone heard GroupMe? Any GroupMe users in here? All right, GroupMe is a very simple app. All it is that if you download it on your phone, available both on Android and on iOS, what you can do is you can create groups of, you can organize it into groups of people that you're working on projects with. So one thing that would have benefited me a lot during senior year was that it was very tough to communicate with people. Some people use Facebook, some people didn't, and being able to communicate these types of ideas for projects was incredibly complicated. Since we've gotten into college, we're a 5-person team. We're all pursuing, different degrees that are all over the place. But we've always been able to get on a group meeting and say, hey, we have a group meeting tomorrow. It would be great if we had 3 people here. We're tabling on Wesco Beach on Tuesday. How many people can volunteer? 1, 2, perfect. Okay. It's been able to optimize projects for us in a huge way. Also, I'd recommend both Hootsuite and Buffer. So both of these programs, if you're going to be using social media, it becomes very complicated to constantly get on multiple times a day and make independent tweets of each other. It's just, we're all too busy. But one thing I've been able to do both with Hootsuite and with Buffer is that I've been able to get on early in the morning and schedule tweets for the next 3 days. And so sometimes it's funny, people will come up to, especially if I'm at conferences, people will be like, wow, that tweet just went out, it's really powerful. And I'll have to think back, oh yeah, that's 3 days. Yeah, sure it was, yeah. And Hootsuite gives you a time to organize those types of opportunities. And gives you time to organize yourself well into the future. The thing with Hootsuite is that if you use it, the free version, you're only able to use 2 accounts. So that means maybe a Facebook page or a Twitter account. But if you use Buffer on top of that, which is something that I do too, you can then add like Instagram as well as different forms of social media if you want to add those to your projects as well. And so what I would recommend right now, if we want to take a couple of minutes to go to the Bitly website, on there I have a lot of apps suggested for you that if you're interested in pursuing projects like this, I would highly recommend. The thing with social media today that I would recommend for you all is that social media opens up opportunities that, it used to be on campaigns and projects like this, you used to be limited to going door to door or maybe getting an ad published in a newspaper. But what social media can do is it can make these types of projects transition from local to global. Our major donation that we had senior year, we got it from a company in Virginia who just found us by chance and thought what we were doing was awesome. Social media opens up those types of doors. And if anyone has any questions on how to set up a Facebook page, or maybe how to maintain a Facebook page, making sure that students are responsible when posting on the Facebook page, it's a big one, definitely come up to me after class, after this keynote today, because I would love to go in detail on how to get that, on how to manage that on a daily basis. So if you would all like to go there, I highly recommend too, if any of you have any suggestions or any apps that you would like to use, please post. If you scroll down, you can see the little the open boxes where you can kind of post those suggestions. I would highly recommend that as well. So, excuse me. All right. All right, so in the last bit here. All right, so now that we've kind of gone into the struggles that I have had, the struggles that to kind of maintain projects like this, the question becomes, are these projects even worth high school students pursuing if they have to sacrifice so much to make these projects a reality? And the answer is an emphatic yes. As it turns out, there are resources out there for high school students to use on a daily basis. I just wasn't looking in the right places. So the Do Something Awards, this is something I highly recommend going to today if you haven't already. I believe it's on the Google Doc. But the DoSomething.org/scholarships has over 100 scholarships that they offer to students every year just to get started. If you're wanting local community projects or projects around the globe, they have projects ranging from $600 to $100,000. I would highly recommend getting involved in that today. If you're looking for projects that your students can start pursuing now, Do Something has an incredible list of ways that you can get started. So DoSomething.org, I definitely recommend that. And then fundraising, Indiegogo, Kickstarter, GoFundMe, highly recommend all of those tools. If students, so I had a lot of friends who were in debate and forensics, and they have struggled because debate and forensics, due to funding cuts that have happened all across the United States, a lot of these programs are struggling to stay above water and can no longer afford to send their kids to nationals. But I've seen a ton of my friends go on Indiegogo and Kickstarter. Have you all heard of these crowdsourcing campaigns? Yes. Okay, yeah, and but projects like this you can get funding for almost immediately, and if students know how to promote themselves right. So I'd highly recommend looking in these in this direction as well. And I think the biggest quote too that comes to mind is that not only is this beneficial for students, can students get real life experience out of this, but colleges are beginning to move in this direction as well. Not only, it used to be, it still is, there's a high focus on the ACT, SAT, as well as a good GPA. But more and more colleges are starting to look towards these volunteer experiences and these experiences that students have had through volunteership programs. This quote from Do Something is probably the best one that I can find. Almost 3/4 of colleges now are ranking community service in the top 4 most important factors considered along GPA, class rank, standardized tests, and other extracurricular activities. There's starting to be more of a movement. Colleges are starting to evaluate more what makes a good student, and more they're starting to give a lot of opportunities for students who have done this type of work while they were in high school. So how about a real world example? Okay, so during my senior year, Mr. Nash came to me and he's like, "Hey Ben, you mean a lot to me. if you went and presented to the freshman class today about what you're doing with your senior legacy. Now, I think Rushton went into the whole thing with freshman boys yesterday. Safe to say I wasn't very excited to be presenting to freshmen, so I kind of talked to freshmen, and I was like, oh, well, here's what I'm doing. It's in Nepal, it's kind of a cool thing if you want to get involved, and I was right. You know, Mr. Knapp was so wrong on this. None of the freshmen even came up and talked to me afterwards. Gosh, Mr. Knapp, what a waste of time, right? Well, okay, so 3 years later, I get a phone call from Garrett Wilkinson. And Garrett talks to me and he's like, hey Ben, so I'm a senior this year at Bueller High School, and I just want to tell you that I was really inspired by what you did when you came and spoke to us, about the open world, cause. And it's always been my dream to supply clean water to people all around the world. Would you be interested in partnering, or maybe, do you know anyone who needs clean water? And at the time I was like, well, we're working with Govinda, but he has access to water. That was one of our first questions, actually, was to ask Govinda, do you have easy access to water? And he said, yeah, we do. And so Garrett talked to him, and we found out that while he had access to water, it was being piped in from a river 9 kilometers down the road. And so waterborne diseases were horrendous in their community. And so what Garrett did, he started with his best friend Aaron Zazowski. They started Project Purus in order to get clean water to communities in Nepal and all around the world. Well, they ended up getting clean water to 8 different schools and orphanages in Nepal, and also provided clean water filters for disaster relief in Haiti as well. And Garrett's efforts, I basically gave Garrett a roadmap to do everything that I did, to do everything I didn't do in terms of promoting himself for scholarships and also time management. I gave him a full list of these apps that I didn't have access to or wasn't aware of senior year. And wouldn't you know it, Garrett ended up getting a $10,000 renewable scholarship to Kansas State University, which allowed him to attend a 4-year university. He had been playing on the City Community College, but he, with this scholarship now, is able to attend Kansas State. And as of last year, Project Purus and Open World have merged, and Garrett was able to go with us to Nepal last month, and we were able to hand deliver clean water filters to the students of the Trika School in the Narayanpur district in Nepal. And so, you never know. If these doors, if you don't open these doors, you never know what possibilities would lie behind. And so, Mr. Knapp, gotta give it to you again. You were right. And this opportunity was waiting behind this door. And so, this, what Garrett was able to show me was not only, do you want to basically reach out there and open as many doors as you can, but also, these types of projects are valued highly, so highly by universities now. And if you're able to do anything like this as a student, whether it's local or around the world, you're going to get recognized by the university around you. This is a picture of the clean water filters, Sawyer filters that we were able to provide the students when we went to Nepal. And so another thing that we have done since we got started with Open World is we've been able to get connected to different classrooms. And one thing that has been amazing to see is how the world opens not only from the Nepal side, but from the classrooms in the United States too, how it broadens their horizons and opens the world to them. So Wendy Pillars is a fantastic example. She teaches at a school that had 95% free and reduced lunch in North Carolina, and got inspired when she found out about the SAP school in Govinda Panthy and decided to travel there. Well, she was taking a 2-week break, and she didn't want to pressure her students into maybe donating to a cause that maybe they didn't have the means to donate to. She didn't tell her students, and her students were a 3rd grade classroom. And so what Wendy ended up doing, though, is that all of her students, those pesky 3rd graders, all wanted to know where she was going for 2 weeks. So finally she went and she told them, she was like, well, okay, I'm going to a classroom in Nepal, and she showed them pictures. And the 3rd graders' first questions was, what can we do to help? And over the next few months, the 3rd graders did this huge thing that Wendy talked about. The 5th graders were in charge. The 5th graders had a monopoly on the TV program that broadcasted throughout the school. So the 3rd graders went and sat down with the 5th graders in a huge meeting, requesting if they could have the broadcast for one day. The 3rd graders went in front of the whole school and asked, they have said, maybe today, don't spend money on chips, don't spend money on that can of Dr. Pepper, and maybe donate that money towards these students in Nepal. And what these 3rd graders were able to do was fund the entire kindergarten classroom in Nepal for an entire year with their campaign. What Wendy said was that, these students were, her own students were waiting to do these amazing, these incredible things. All they needed, all they needed was that door open for them. And so, one more example, stepping up. So Kaylee Lorman, this is a project that's very close to me. Bullying is something that, I went through a lot of bullying in elementary school. And this is something, Kaylee and I were kind of kindred spirits in this. Her and I attended this, the same conference, the Podstock conference in Wichita. And she talked about how she wanted to create a program, an anti-bullying program that could assist students who were in need or suffering from bullying on a daily basis. And after this conversation, she asked, what did you do with Open World? How did you get started with Open World? And so we recommended, get involved on Twitter, get involved on the Facebook page, reach out there, do, do whatever you can do to try to help as many students as you can. And we, emphasize, focus on the global as well as the local. Well, she created her own program called Stepping Up, so others won't get stepped on. Created her own website, and now has reached thousands of people over the last few years, and has received so many. Last time she presented at Podstock, 2 years later, and has connected with high school kids all around the world who have told her what you have done. Your program has helped me get through the day, has helped me get through the year, and has made me realize that there's more going on outside of the walls of my high school. What Kaylee has done is a true inspiration, and she's planning on using that as well to apply for different colleges because she wants to continue pursuing this route in education for the rest of her life. And so Kaylee, as an example, I take my hat off to her. What she has done is a true inspiration. And so today, I extend a challenge to you. The keys of our devices have the power to change the world. All it took was a challenge one day my senior year in high school for me, to do something, to leave a legacy for generations that followed. Just creating a Facebook page, just creating a website through WordPress and broadcasting what we were doing has made our entire aspirations possible. So today I ask you to unlock these doors for your students. Ask your students, what can they do to build legacies? To build a legacy that will pass down to their classes that follow, to their entire communities, to the entire world. We have the power to make great changes with our devices. They're sitting in our pockets, and yet what we can do with them is endless. And so, today, when your legacy begins, we would love to be a part of it. I challenge you to open the world today. We can change the world. What's stopping us? Thank you all so much for sharing this with me. If anyone has any questions, we have a little time here, so if anyone has any questions for me about really anything, I'm willing to answer, even like the types of soda available in the town vending machines, honestly, I'm an open book. If anyone has any questions whatsoever, I'd love to answer them. Oh yeah, pass. And also, anyone too, if anyone wants to talk to me after, feel free to come up to me after, especially if it has anything to do about training projects like this, or again, talking about favorite sodas and whatnot, feel free to do so.